Hey, 7th graders. This is a video to review surface area. We are going to be focusing on rectangular prisms and triangular prisms in this video. So first we're going to start with some vocabulary. For on-level, we really haven't talked about lateral surface area, but we are going to address it today. Pre-AP, you've talked about it in our lessons. So for lateral surface area, when we talk about lateral surface area, it's the area which does not include the base or bases. So today when we look at rectangular prisms and triangular prisms and find lateral surface area, we are not going to include the two rectangular bases or the two triangular bases. For total surface area, it is the total area and we include the base or bases. So the only difference between lateral and total, bases are not included with lateral surface area, and we're going to get some practice with that today. So we're going to go ahead and look at our first example. You are supposed to know how to find surface area given a net. But just in case they don't give you a net, we're going to give you a 3D figure, and then we also give you that net of that 3D figure as well. So for a rectangular prism, you need to remember that you are going to have two rectangles that have the same measurements. All right, so when we're finding lateral surface area, remember that that does not include the bases. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my 3D figure and I'm going to find the bases. Okay, so whatever it's sitting on is the rectangular base. And I've color coded those two parts because prisms have two matching bases. So I've color coded those with the red highlighting. All right, I've identified another base, and we're going to call that the front of our rectangular prism. Remember, there is a match to the front, and I've color-coded that piece of information yellow in both of our figures. So we have one more set, and that's our side, and I've color-coded those blue for you. So our formula, we have a length, we have a width, and we have a height. So if we remember, we are not including the bases for lateral surface area. If I look at the measurements of all of the parts of our rectangular prism, I have length, width, and height. And I can identify those, length, width, and height. That means I have two rectangles that have the measurements of length and width. I have two rectangles that have the measurement of my length and my height. And I have two rectangles that have the measurement of width and height. But remember, we have to look. I look at my red rectangle up here, and that gives me the length by the measurement of the width. So we are not going to include our 2 length times width as part of our lateral surface area. So our red rectangles are not going to count in lateral surface area. Only the rectangles in blue and yellow are going to count. So that means we're going to have the ones that have length times height. So my length is 8 times my height of 5. So 8 times 5 is 40. And I have 2 of those. So 40 times 2 gives me a total of 80. Okay, so that would be the area of length and height. So our yellow rectangles that are 8 by 5. Then I have 2 rectangles that are going to be width and height. So my width and height are 3 by 5. Those are my blue rectangles. So I have 3 times 5, and that gives me 15 for one blue rectangle. But I have 2 blue rectangles for a total of 30. And I realize I forgot I put the times sign here, but that should be times 2. Insert that. So now all I have to do is add 80 plus 30, and that gives me an area of 110 inches, because that's what the little marks mean there. The 2 marks mean inches squared. So my lateral surface area, not including my bases, is 110 inches squared. So when we find the total, all we have to go back and do is find the area of the other 2 rectangles that we didn't do. the two that are the length times the width. So that gives me length times width, which would be 8 times 3, which totals 24. But remember, we have 2 of them, so I multiply by 2 for a total of 48. So all I have to do to get the total is take the 48, add it to our 110, and we get our total surface area. So 110 plus 48 gives me a total of 158 for my total surface area. So 158 inches squared for the total surface area of this rectangular prism. Pause here, make sure you get the work for this. All right, we're going to move on to our second example. And we have a triangular prism this time. So we have the 3D shape here, and we have the net of that shape. So remember, for lateral surface area, no bases. So since we have a triangular prism, the name tells us the bases are triangles. So we are not going to include our triangles, only the rectangles. So all we have to do is find the area of rectangle 1, the area of rectangle 2, and the area of rectangle 3, and add them together. So 1 plus 2 plus 3. So remember, to find the area of a rectangle, it's just length times width. But each one of these has their own length and width. So we have 3 different rectangles. So now we're ready to plug in. So our first rectangle is 10 by 5. So I have 10 times 5 for rectangle 1. For rectangle 2, my length and width are 5 and 9, which is the measurement of that triangle. So we have 5, maybe, there we go, 5 times 9 for rectangle number 2, plus rectangle number 3, which is 8 by 5. So those would be our measurements. So that gives me 50 plus 45 plus 40. So when I add all of that together, 50 plus 40 is 90, plus 45 gives me a total surface area of lateral surface area, not total, but the lateral surface area is 135 centimeters squared. So to find our total surface area, we now have to go and do our triangles. All right, so remember, for area of a triangle, it's 1/2 base times height. So now all we have to do is substitute in that information for base and height, and we get our answer. So we have 1/2 times the base and height of our triangles are 9 and 8. So 1/2, 9 times 8. So that means I have 1/2 of 72, and half of 72 gives me 36. But that's just for one triangle. And remember, prisms have 2 bases that are the same. So we need to multiply this by 2 to get our area for both triangles. So that gives me 72. Kind of where we started, it was kind of pointless to divide by half. So we're going to take 135, and we are going to add 72. So that's 7, that's 10, carry the 1. So we end up with our total surface area being 207 centimeters squared. And that is our final answer. So you will do some more practice. Very similar to what we had been doing on the grid. This time we've just taken the grids. You have the measurements, and you have to do the calculation.